Hello, everyone. We're going to get started to talk about iOS 10.3. We're going to talk about what that means for you and your app, what we know so far, what we don't know, and then what Apptentive is doing around this. If you have questions, please write them in the console. We're going to have time for a Q&A at the end. But without further ado, here is Roby Ganguly, the CEO of Apptentive, to drop some knowledge.
Thanks, Emily. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a great Thursday. I welcome you to our webinar from rainy Seattle, where it just won't stop being stereotypically wet around here. All right, so 10.3 is very exciting. We think that this portends a new future for customer feedback, a place where we really see both app stores welcoming consumers into the process of making a better app and connecting more with the brands that they love. And so we wanted to talk about what we know so far, and then give you a highlight of some of the things that are open questions for us, and then think through timing and preparation so that you can start to get to a place where you are planning with your team, and give you insight into what we at Team Apptentive are doing in order to think about the changes and get in front of them, and then give you a couple of strategic takeaways that you can share with your teams more broadly. We've heard from a bunch of our customers that this is a topic where a lot of questions are coming up, and we really want to make sure that you have all the information at your disposal, and we're giving it to you easily so that you don't have to do a lot of homework. You can actually kind of outsource your brain on this topic to us. So let's first talk about what's new. A couple weeks ago, we saw in the release notes for the beta for 10.3 that there were some new things. This is why we're doing the webinar, because they popped up a lot of questions. The first and most exciting aspect of this is that there is a new method. That is, for those of you who are not technical in the webinar, is a way for your engineers to call inside of your app a rating prompt. And what is really interesting about this new method, and here's the technical term for it, SK store review controller.request review, is that for the first time ever, your customers can actually, inside the app, leave a rating. And I think that for all of us, is exciting because it's a much better experience. Leaving the app, clicking through to log into the App Store, to find the place to leave a star rating, to find the place to leave a review is very challenging. It's somewhere between 5 and 12 clicks for a consumer, depending upon where they're coming from. And what we know from our data from helping companies communicate with hundreds of millions of customers is that on average, only about 7% of people really make it through that process end to end. So this new method really should make it a lot easier for customers to give feedback, and we think it will lead to an explosion in review volume, which for a lot of companies could be scary, but we know that for the companies we work with, that's exciting because anytime a customer talks to you, it's a place to learn. So this is pretty great. The second thing that we know that's coming with this is that when you're using this method, Apple is going to be imposing a limit on how many times it can actually be presented to an end consumer. And again, those of you who have been working with Apptentive for a number of years know that we always harp on right time, right place. We're really, really focused on not bothering consumers, but finding the right place to engage with them. What Apple is saying here is that's very important. And at the system level, they're going to make sure that no single consumer is asked more than 3 times over the course of the year in order to diminish some of the noise. We know that people who have hacked together solutions around this or built their own homegrown rating prompt have pretty simple systems. They're not driven by the server, and as a result, they can show up every time you launch an app, which is terribly frustrating. And so fundamentally, Apple is taking a look at this and saying, this is behavior we want to discourage, and we would like to put a limit on it. There's no telling as to whether or not the limitation is going to change, but currently it is set at 3 times per year. The third exciting aspect of what they announced is that there will be an ability to respond to App Store reviews. We do not know exactly how this is going to work, but we know that for several years in Google Play, you've been able to respond to reviews in public, and so this will be something that will be at parity across the 2 platforms. So those are the new things, and that's what we really know. So continuing on, there are several questions that we have outstanding, and these are places where we at Apptentive are investigating, we're reaching out to people we know, and we're paying attention as we go from beta 1 to beta 2 and see what else is released. So the first big question here is there's a limitation of 3 prompts per year, and we don't fully understand how this limitation on the prompting is going to get imposed. What they've communicated is that when you make the call for the new method, there will be work that is done on the client side that determines whether or not that method should be shown, that is going to rely upon the limitations and might have some black box element of intelligence around if Apple thinks that this is a good place to show it, but that's all we know today. As we find out more around this, as this goes into general availability and we get to see this in the wild, we'll update you because we think this is a really interesting place to pay attention. The second thing is we don't know if there are going to be any metrics available through the API method to understand when it's been called, who it's been shown to, how many times it's been shown. As you know, if you're working with Apptentive, this is a really important part of communicating with customers, the reporting on when you're bothering people, the reporting on your success metrics, the reporting on whether or not people are taking the actions that you want them to take when you communicate with them. All of those are a piece of the puzzle that we call diminishing the annoyance rate. Again, we're really super focused on the idea that to be too noisy is very frustrating for an end consumer. And so we've been tracking and instrumenting this for a long time. We don't know if there are any system level metrics, but you can be sure, and I'll get to this a little bit later, that Apptentive will always be very focused on understanding this dynamic. The third thing is we don't know yet if the star rating prompt using this new method is just about the rating and if reviews require you to actually go to the App Store, or if you'll also be able to leave reviews within the app. Obviously, it would be a huge win if consumers could leave their review within the app. Again, we think that experience is much better, it's seamless, and very importantly for all of you, it ensures that people are not leaving your app to go do something which is very valuable, which is writing their thoughts. But today, in version 1 of the beta, when you test out the flow and you click through to leave a rating, the submit button is grayed out, so we cannot yet explore the next steps of the flow. We expect this to change as we get more betas, and again, we will update you on this. And then the final thing that we're waiting to learn about is whether or not there will be an API so that publishers can programmatically respond to App Store reviews as opposed to going into the iTunes Connect console. Is there going to be an ability to do this programmatically? In which case, you will be able to connect to your App Store reviews and respond to them using Apptentive. This is a recent capability that Google has started to roll out in the Google Play Store. We don't know if this is going to be available coming out of Apple. Our hypothesis is that it won't be the most important thing for them to launch and might follow. But again, we're paying attention to this, and I want to call out that this is a key question that we should all take into account, and we will update you as we learn more. So let's talk a little bit about timing. Everybody that we work with has very tight time frames, very full product roadmaps. It's really important to get in front of new integration activities to make sure that your engineering team is ready. Judging by past releases of updates to iOS and beta periods, we would expect a beta period of 1 to 2 months from the time that they announced it. And probably somewhere on the order of 3 to 5 different beta versions. But we are currently still on beta 1. And as I mentioned, it doesn't yet enable us to do full end-to-end testing. So it seems like we're a little bit early in the beta process. And when you're thinking about your timing, a period of 1 to 2 months from 2 weeks ago, which is now sort of 2 to 6 weeks, probably makes sense that we will see some movement towards GA. But again, as we get further updates to the beta, we'll get a little bit more clarity about the completeness and some of the rollout patterns around this. And to be really tactical around this, what I would encourage all of you to think about is educating your engineering teams about this change coming and letting them know that at some point in the next few weeks, we might have more clarity that will make you and your engineering team want to talk about putting some work into a sprint. But ideally, that work is really, if you're an Apptentive customer, going to be about updating the SDK because we are running really fast after 10.3 support in order to be available as close to GA. So that brings me to an important piece of this is what are we working on at Apptentive? Because we care so much about customer feedback, because we've been in this market for 5 years and have really focused on this problem, this is a place where we are paying a ton of attention because, as I said at the beginning, we're excited. We think this is going to lead to more customers conversing, a lot more data for all of you to make better products, and really a scenario where the companies who are listening, responding, and taking care of their customers are going to win even faster. So what we've already built at Apptentive that satisfies and helps with this situation is a decoupling capability. So for those of you who are Apptentive customers, you would know that in the past several years, there's been the option to find out who loves your app and make sure that people who are big fans have the opportunity to talk about you in the App Store, and the folks who are not yet quite happy with you or think there are things you can improve can leave you private feedback either through a survey or through Message Center, and leaving open-ended feedback that will encourage an ongoing dialogue. In fall of last year, as we started to broaden our suite and talk a lot more with our customers about understanding their cohort of fans and about really understanding their audience overall from a satisfaction perspective, we decoupled the ratings prompt from the love prompt. And the love prompt is the very simple question of, do you love Nordstrom? Do you love the Starbucks app? We've decoupled that from the action of rating. We did that for a couple of reasons, the most important of which is the love prompt has never really been about ratings. Ratings is an output that is useful in the App Store, but Apptentive is about customer experience management across all software experiences. And in order to move towards an environment where we support more than just mobile apps, we want to decouple this and really help you at scale understand who loves you. So we've built this already, and if you are not yet on the beta of the decoupling, I encourage you to follow up with us after the webinar and get on that beta. There's really interesting data out of it. Early stages say that by decoupling, we see an increase of 20% in terms of consumer advocacy in the App Store because you're able to separate the ask about their satisfaction from understanding when is the right time to actually ask them to become an advocate. And that separation leads to a much better consumer experience. So that's already built. The second thing that we're running after right now is supporting this new method, making sure that you can call it within the Apptentive SDK, and that is an optional interaction that you can utilize. As we've heard so far in the release notes from Apple, this is a place where Apple is going to encourage people to start using the new method, but it is not the only method that is going to be supported. It's not limited to their method. So we want to make sure that we're supporting this and we're starting to get data and understanding how it's going. So in 3 to 6 months, we can report back and say what we've learned is that by talking to people inside your app and getting the ratings and reviews, response rates go up by X%. So we're running towards this as quickly as possible. And as quickly as the betas update and allow us to test end-to-end flows, you will hear updates about what we're finding when we implement that. The third thing that we're working on, and this is a place where Apptentive is historically really strong and we continue to invest, is the reporting and instrumentation about customer communication. So this new method inside the app is a new interaction type. It is a new way to garner customer feedback. And so as a result, we view it as really important to be able to measure how many times it's been shown to people, to measure what the actions that people are taking out of it are, and to help you understand efficacy and, the correct time and the correct place to talk to your customers. So we're working on this as well, and you should expect over the next couple of months as we move from the first version of the beta to getting into GA and then 10.3 being released, to hear more from us about what is possible to measure around this and what those numbers mean. And then finally, the fourth thing that we're working on is contingent upon what we assume will eventually be available, an API from Apple allowing programmatic responses to App Store reviews without visiting iTunes Connect. As I mentioned in the previous slide, we don't yet know that this will come. We anticipate at some point it will, and at the point in time in which it is available, what you should expect out of Apptentive is the ability then to respond to customers in the App Store. But I want to highlight that because this is an unknown area, this will likely be well after 10.3's general availability and much more tied to if there is anything made available by Apple and how that roadmap really fleshes out over the next 6 to 12 months. So that's what we're working on here at Apptentive. Again, I want to underscore that ever since this came out 2 weeks ago, we've been paying a lot of attention. We're moving really quickly. And in particular, if you're an Apptentive customer, what this means is that you should definitely be educating your internal teams, but you should be looking to us to support this and really diminishing the amount of extra work that is available for you. I want to talk a little bit more about decoupling because it might be new to many of you. As I mentioned, we've had this in beta since the fall of last year. Some of our customers are using this. What it means is that this love prompt, do you love the demo app, for example, is first and foremost about finding your fans. And at scale, our customers who are using this decoupling are finding out from 15 to 20% of their audience every month whether or not they're a fan. The second thing that happens is if they're not a fan, and if you're an Apptentive customer, you know this well, it gives you a route to get feedback from those customers. It takes people into a survey or into Message Center or into open-ended feedback, allowing them to tell you what you could do better and how you can improve. Our customers use this today to get hundreds, if not thousands of responses every week to make their product better. Third is the decoupling part. The decoupling part says that if you have found somebody who is a fan, when you ask them if they love the app, it is decoupled from the next action. And that next action, in this scenario that we're showing in the screenshots here, could potentially be the rating dialog. But that next action could also be something like social sharing. So some of our apps in the entertainment space, for example, find that people who are fans of them on Facebook are tremendously valuable. They come back to the Facebook page more often, they share and spread to their networks, and as a result, finding a fan and taking them to share in social, to like them on Facebook is really important next step. Other customers of ours find that finding fans and then offering them promotions or access to new features before the rest of their customer base is really valuable to get early feedback from people who are loyal and who will be lenient with early day mistakes. So again, by decoupling this, what we've done is multiplied the number of options you can do with people who are fans, and that's the really important takeaway here, and why I would encourage you to reach out to us if you're not yet on this beta, so that you can start taking advantage of this. It's proven to be really exceptional in terms of driving actions that map to multiple goals, not just ratings and reviews in the App Store, but marketing goals, evangelism, testing, and loyalty goals. And fourth, as a result of this, what we're seeing from customers is an ongoing behavior around growing the cohort of fans, thinking about the audience of people who love you as an asset that can be utilized in order to share, evangelize, learn from, and continue to talk with on an ongoing basis in order to ensure that your fans, the most loyal customers of your apps, are really continuing to be happy with what you're doing as you're changing over time. So that's decoupling. I want to leave a few points of note, really for all of you who are being asked about this internally, who are being looked at as subject matter experts in general about your apps, but in particular App Store sentiment and ratings and reviews. Some of the things that 10.3 really underscores and highlights that I think every team in the mobile space should be paying attention to is that the drive towards right time and right place is a winning strategy. The companies who really advocate for not bothering customers, but finding an appropriate time to communicate with them, an appropriate time to listen, will be the winners. And this is going to happen, A, because it's just much better for customers. We know as consumers that when we're interrupted, we are frustrated, but when we're invited to give feedback when we're ready, we feel welcomed and it's a gift. Apple is saying here with 10.3 that they're taking measures to actually influence the course of behavior because they've seen folks who are not thinking about this as hard. And if you are already working with this, kudos. Thank you for working with us, but also kudos for thinking about right time, right place. And really, I want to emphasize that anytime you're communicating with customers, thinking about right time, right place is a winning strategy. The second thing is that because this mechanism is going to be so much more easily accessible for customers inside the app, that it's not interruptive, app customers are going to feel as if they are more vocal. This is because more customers are going to be given a voice in a method that is really easy for them. So when you reduce the friction associated with getting customer feedback, you will increase the volume. So you should expect across the entire landscape, from your apps to your competitors' apps to apps in general, to see more ratings in the App Store at the very least. And if reviews are also available to be left inside the app, we'll see more reviews. And along with that volume comes a lot more learning and understanding of your audience. The third thing I talked about in terms of the decoupling is that really building a cohort of fans is truly important to building an asset for your audience. Your customer base is, in a meaningful way, your first line of defense against any mistakes that you make. They're also your first line of offense in telling your story and evangelizing what you're doing at your company and when you're providing great customer experiences. Enabling your fans to talk about you is a really powerful marketing and product strategy. But along with this, understanding the cohort of fans, in particular in the app space, you now have to start thinking about, at least in iOS, a pool of reviews. Now, what do I mean by this? Really simply, if you today have 100,000 app customers, people who are using your app on a regular basis, What Apple is saying with this new method is that when using that method, each of those customers is only really possibly going to rate you in the App Store 3 times per year. They're going to limit the number of times you can prompt. And so if each and every time you prompt a customer, it's perfect, and they take that action, each customer can represent 3 reviews per year. That means that you have a pool of an entire 12 months of 300,000 potential reviews. And we know that customers don't always take the action that we want them to. We know that the customers will have other things that are going on for them, so they won't always convert. So an open question here is it going to be 50%? Is it going to be 25%? Is it going to be 10%? Is really important to understanding the strategy going forward that you want to deploy in activating your evangelists and generating ratings and reviews. And I want to leave you with a little bit of a visual around this. The way to think about it is that you might have essentially 3 different periods throughout the year where you go to a segment of your customers and you ask them how they're doing, and if they're huge fans, you ask them to rate you. And if you do that all in the January through April timeframe, May through August and September through December, you won't have anybody to talk to. Ideally, what you want to do is spread this out evenly over the course of the year. And this is where instrumentation and reporting and sophisticated targeting and messaging really comes into play. You've got to think about a strategy that allows you to tap into this 300,000 potential reviews and turns it into as many possible reviews over the course of the year, such that your apps have a steady stream of feedback and ratings about them in the App Store, as opposed to a big lumpy dump of reviews in the first quarter with subsequent releases having no reviews at all. We all know that that place where your app doesn't have enough reviews to even be shown is a frustrating place. Many of you experience that in the first week to 2 weeks after an app goes out. That dynamic is potentially going to be exacerbated if you and your team are not thinking about flighting and asking for reviews from your customers in an intelligent manner and really distributing it across the course of the year. Again, as we get more into instrumentation and reporting, we will help our customers really manage this, but all of you in the app space should be thinking about this dynamic because it's about to change for quite a few of us. So with that, I want to invite questions from everybody on the phone. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your Thursday to come join us and learn a little bit more about this. I want to make sure we're answering any questions that you have. But as I mentioned, if you're not yet on the decoupling beta and you're an Apptentive customer, please let us know. We would love to get you on that and show you some exciting data and have you take action around your cohort of fans. Just email us at support@apptentive.com. And we will also, all of you who have joined this webinar, will be following up with you as we learn more. Because as I said earlier, I want you to be clear that we can be the experts on this. This is a place where we're paying a lot of attention, and you can outsource your brain and make sure that everybody on your team has the right information. So, Emily, do you have a couple questions here?
Yeah, we actually do have a few. So, Roby, how is Apple calculating per year? Is that 3 prompts per calendar year or per 365 days?
Yes, that is a fantastic question, which we still do not have exact insight into. If I was to guess, this would be based upon a rolling 365 for every customer, based upon when they were first prompted, and then the date would decline and expire over the next 364 days. That would be my guess, but we don't yet know if it's going to reset on a calendar basis or it's going to be individual to the consumer. So that's a place where we'll be investigating. Great question, and it will impact the math in a meaningful way.
Okay, great. Here's the next one. Do you expect any changes regarding app reviews from Apple during app submission regarding what can be done in terms of app prompts?
In the near term, there hasn't been any indication or communication from the team about this, and so I never really want to speculate about how App Store review goes. We know that team pretty well, and their line, as I'm sure many of you have heard, is every app is unique, and we treat everyone as a unique experience. But what I am sure will be happening over the next 12 months, because they're paying more attention here, is they're going to look a lot harder at how you're asking customers about satisfaction. They're going to look at how you're asking them to rate it, and they're going to make sure that if you are doing it in a way that seems like it is confusing to the end consumer, they're probably going to be a little bit more focused on clamping down on that. And they're also going to want to engage a little bit more to get your feedback on how using the new methods is going. Other than that, we don't have explicit insight about any App Store review changes in policy.
Okay, great. So in addition to leaving a star rating in-app, do you expect the next step of the flow to be a native box to leave comments, or you don't expect comments to be part of the flow?
Yeah, and so this is something I highlighted in the open questions. I think from a consumer experience perspective, you could imagine that leaving feedback right after you rate inside the app is the best experience. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see that, but because we can't test end to end, you're not able to submit the rating. We don't know for sure. So we will update you as soon as we get a version of the beta that gives us more of the flow and insight into this.
Okay, great. So Apple resets the rating that is displayed after every update. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is so in the app ecosystem, this tends to be a commonplace of difference between the two platforms because in Google Play, there's a lifetime average, and that's all it is. It's a lifetime average, whereas in the App Store, there's a lifetime average and then the current App Store ratings and reviews average. I think that I would be surprised to see Apple move away from current to lifetime, given the fact that they are now giving us more methods to give feedback and to ask our customers. I'd be surprised by that, and we haven't seen any indication. They haven't communicated that that's going to change. In general, I think the thing that's super important to all of you who are making apps is regardless of how the App Store presents it, you should be really keyed into the feedback that you get version by version. So one of the things that our customers tend to really benefit from is their ability to see how feedback trends, how sentiment trends, what their love ratio trends from version to version. And we're actually investing more in presentation of version to version comparisons this year. So you should see that in your dashboard. And I would encourage all of you to be thinking about that regardless of how the App Store presents it, because it can tell you if you're making progress or not.
That's great. So do you also guess that this is controlled at the device level? So for example, if I have two phones in 2018, I could potentially be hit up 6 times?
That is a really interesting question because only Apple knows what kind of fingerprinting and limitations and instrumentation they do at a device level keyed to the iTunes account. We don't have much insight into this. I don't really have any speculation on this. I'm very as curious as you to see how it's implemented because you could imagine with an iTunes ID, Apple being able to connect that data and learn from it, but they're also super focused on privacy and have talked to us a lot about differential privacy. And I would imagine in a world where they're trying to get more focused on privacy and security, that connecting the dots between two different devices, even if they're both yours with your iTunes account, might run afoul of what they think is appropriate. So more to come here. I don't have a great answer. I'm as curious as you.
So next question. Is the plan for Apptentive to manage this new method? Will our app need to add this method in addition to Apptentive events, or will Apptentive manage the initiation of the method through our existing events implemented?
Yeah, fantastic question. And this is a place where we intend to support this method. We intend to make it another type of action that you can drive. We think that over the next 12 to 18 months, Apple is going to highly encourage every app publisher to start utilizing this, at least in some measure of their app. Utilizing this, we think will provide a better experience. So we will support it. You and your teams should not have to do extra work to pull this in aside from Apptentive. What you should be looking for from us is communication about the availability of an updated SDK that supports this. And the important thing that we're going to work hard to get right around this is that when customers of yours are not on 10.3, what's the experience? Is there going to be a good fallback? We're going to try and make sure that we are handling that elegantly for you.
Great. So do you foresee an option where a review of 3 stars or under could link the guest to a contact us section of your app to help the guest with an issue they may have?
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. I currently, seeing how the method is called and utilized, there isn't any indication that the data coming out of that will be specific enough to the rating that the customer leaves. And so if it was specific, you could then take next steps based upon criteria. But one of the reasons that we have decoupled this ratings prompt and really focused on the love prompt first and foremost is being able to get in front of this so that before you're even talking about showing a presentation of a ratings prompt to a customer, you're first and foremost focused on identifying who needs help. And so I would encourage you, if you have yet to utilize that capability of Apptentive, to start start running out with that. Many of our customers talk to 15 to 20% of their audience every month and find somewhere between 5 and 10% of those people are unhappy and take them to a contact us button that is powered by Apptentive's Message Center, where they can leave free form feedback. So if you haven't explored this, let us know. Ping us at support@apptentive.com and we can show you some of the power of this, because this is a really, really good place to get in front of frustrated consumers and make sure that they are heard.
Great. So is the 3 cap for in-app ratings only?
Yeah, so our understanding is that the cap of 3 per year is the cap on calling this method and having it actually be presented to the customer. I don't believe that they are imposing any limitations on customers who navigate to the App Store on their own. So for example, imagine that you're sitting at your desktop and you want to go rate or review a few of the apps that you use on your phone, and you navigate there on your desktop. There isn't any indication that the limitation will be imposed on people going to do that. So other navigations to the App Store are outside of the limitations of the method.
Okay, so for this next one, of the Apptentive customers using the iOS SDK, what % are running iOS 10?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't have the answer off the top of my head. Last we checked, it was north of 80%. iOS adoption of the latest versions tend to be very, very quick in comparison with Android adoption. And so iOS 10 has been out in the wild for a while, and it's really heavily adopted. Happy to get back with you.
John.
Oh, yeah, John. Happy to get back to you and follow up and pull the explicit data here.
Okay, great. So this next one, what is Apptentive's strategy for doing an SDK update that requires new implementation into our app versus updates to the Apptentive web interface?
Yeah, this is a great question. It's a place where we spend a lot of time. We know that implementing new SDKs is extra work, and we are always loath to require extra work. But in a scenario where a new method comes out that is made available from a platform that actually has to be instrumented and added to our framework, we do have to release a new update. So what will happen when this goes into general availability is a new iOS SDK will be available from Apptentive that supports this. I wish that we could push this all dynamically, but some of the limitations of both platforms really means that this is going to require an SDK update. More data and presentation will happen in our dashboard and will not require SDK updates. We'll show you more information, but again, this is a new method coming from Apple, and in order to support it, we have to ship new bits to you.
So will Apptentive then support both in-app and kicking out to the App Store?
Yes. So when you think about the actions that a customer can take, whether it's rating the app or it's social sharing or it's going to a website or signing into a loyalty program or what have you, our customers send their consumers out of the app for lots and lots of different reasons. That will always be the case. Not every experience for your customer is contained inside the app. Sometimes it exists on a website. Sometimes it exists in person. Sometimes it requires a phone call. We enable our customers to take their own consumers on communications journeys, whether or not they're in the app. And so we will continue to support that. And in fact, you should expect us to invest more in that as we start to support the web more and more.
So, Roby, do you think Apptentive will be able to find out what star rating the customer submitted so we can start to segment our customers on star rating?
Yeah, so this is a really great question that has 2 pieces to the answer. So the first is, will anybody get data from either Apple or Google that allows the explicit identification of a customer and what they've rated the app? And to date, the answer from both platforms is we do allow you to understand that in the form of our ID, right? So Google Play uses the Google Plus IDs, and the Apple App Store uses your iTunes ID. And so that iTunes ID has a rating associated with it, which you can see in the App Store. But they are not made available programmatically, and they're not made available in order to connect to in-app activity. We don't see this changing. Nothing that's been announced has changed this point of view from the platforms. And until that is changed, it's not possible for us to connect programmatically. But the second piece of this is you don't really need to do that because what we allow our customers to do inside their apps is communicate with all of them and then follow up and put them in buckets. So the decoupling capability, when somebody says that they love your app, they're now put into a bucket of people who love your app who you can communicate with, and they are segmented out. And if you haven't used that aspect of targeting, I encourage you to follow up with us, get a little bit of a demo from the customer success team about how to use targeting to follow up with certain segments, either the fans of your app because they've said they love it, or the people who maybe left negative feedback, or potentially using our NPS surveys to follow up with detractors. All of those capabilities for segmenting and targeting customers continues to get broadened at Apptentive and is separate from identification in the app stores around ratings and reviews. And what I really want to highlight here for those of you who might have missed this earlier in the presentation is when it comes down to it, our customers across hundreds of millions of interactions see that only approximately 7% of people who identify as big fans of the app do end up taking action to go to the App Store and rate it. The rest of the people have raised their hand and said they're big fans. We've made that segmentation available for targeting and communication in our dashboard and in our SDK for well over a year. And so that is really an important place to invest, is further understanding and communicating follow-up with people based upon the buckets that they're in.
Great. So assuming there won't be an API initially for responding to customer reviews from within the Apptentive dashboard, how quickly can Apptentive fetch customer reviews using the current APIs? In other words, can you alert us when a review has been posted so we can log into iTunes Connect to respond to the review?
So this is a really good question. Today, we typically will know about new reviews within about 24 to 36 hours. This is based upon some of the ways that we access this data and pull it today. Over time, we are working to accelerate this. So it's not an immediate notification. For most of our customers, it's a pretty early notification because most customers are too busy to monitor this on an hourly basis. And so as a result, you can see these things showing up in your dashboard relatively quickly. And then what you should expect over the next 6 months is we will announce some integrations with interaction tools like Slack, for example, as well as some upgrades to how we're pulling this data. And at some point, you might see us asking for an authorization into your iTunes Connect account to try and pull this a little bit faster for you.
Great. So Google already has reviews that you can respond to. Can you just briefly tell us what we should know about that?
Yeah. So I think it was about 2.5 years ago, Google Play announced that you could respond. It's long been a point of frustration in the Play Store that the responses were relatively challenging. What you have to do is you have to go into your developer console. If you see a review, you can go respond to it. If the customer wants to respond back to you, they have to edit their existing review. Neither side is typically notified of a response. And then if you wanted to respond to the customer after they've responded to you, you would have to edit your response. That's how it's worked for a while. Recently, when they announced the API, they started to support threading, so there's more back and forth. And so that back and forth is a little bit better experience for the customer and for the publisher. And so that's a place where we're starting to investigate how to programmatically support that as well. But we don't have anything to announce on that front just yet.
Great. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to our webinar on 10.3 and asking all your amazing questions. We will share out the recording after this. We'll share out the deck. And if you'd like to be part of our decoupling beta, please ping us at support@apptentive.com. Roby, thanks for taking the time to explain what this looks like and what we know. As we learn more, we will definitely keep you up to date on upcoming news.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. And just really want to underscore, this is a great time for customer feedback in the app ecosystem. We're going to see an acceleration. Your customers are going to become more vocal. You are going to build better products. We're really excited here at Apptentive, and thanks for joining us.